The Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1931 showed that cancer is a regression of oxygen-deprived cells which drives them to multiply anarchically, as in a primeval world where oxygen was not present to the extent that it is today. The initial oxygen deprivation is due to a malfunction of the mitochondria, which, as we have seen, can be caused by electromagnetic fields or other pollutants, such as soap, pesticides, food additives and air pollution. The same principle of cellular oxygen deficiency applies to diabetes, which is why there is a higher rate of cancers among diabetics than in the rest of the population. At Philadelphia Zoo, from 1901 to 1955, a rise in the rate of malignant tumors was noted in mammals, varying from twice to 22 times more between those dates. Cancer death statistics show a clear correlation between the electrification of countries and cancer rates. For example, in the USA, the rate was 6.6 per thousand from 1841 to 1850. It subsequently more than doubled from 1851 to 1860, with a rate of 14 per thousand. The true explanation for this can be found in the mass deployment of the telegraph in 1854. In 1914, there were 2 deaths from cancer among the 63,000 Native Americans living in reserves without electrification, while in the rest of the country the cancer mortality rate was 25 times higher. Between 1920 and 1921, following the introduction of the first AM radio stations, cancer mortality increased by between 3 and 10% in Western countries. The Swedish researchers Ola Johansson and Algen Hallberg have shown a clear correlation between breast, prostate and lung cancer rates and the exposure of the population to radio frequencies. They point to a significant increase in rates in 1920, 1955, 1969 and a decrease in 1978, corresponding respectively to the increase in radio frequency smoke due to the introduction of AM radio, FM radio and TV1, the arrival of color TV2, and then the cessation of AM radio broadcasts. These same researchers have likewise found a very clear linear correlation between the number of FM radio transmitters per region and the incidence of melanomas, with the exposed locations having 11 times more melanomas than the white zones. They also found that melanomas rarely appear on those areas of the body most exposed to the sun, such as the forehead, nose, shoulders and feet, but more often in those areas of the body usually protected from the sun. Moreover, the proliferation of skin cancers occurred before the coming into fashion of seaside holidays, during which sun exposure is intense. This shows that melanomas are not predominantly caused by the sun, but by radio frequencies. The statistical graphs of death rates from cancer, as well as from diabetes and cardiovascular diseases, broken down by the degree of electrification of American states in 1931 and 1940, are likewise very explicit, leaving no doubt whatever that electromagnetic fields play a role in the increase in cancers. Genuine data on brain tumors is hard to find, as the cell phone lobby has been infiltrating this field for decades in order to commission biased studies. One of the studies even shows a decrease in the incidence of tumors, correlating with the intensive use of cell phones. However, the University of Calgary has found evidence of a 30% increase in the incidence of malignant brain tumors in the period from 2012 to 2013, and Lennart Hardel, professor of oncology at the University Hospital of Örebro in Sweden, has demonstrated that 2,000 hours of cell phone use increases the risk of developing a tumor by a factor of between 3 and 8, depending on the age of the subject and the phone habits. In 2000, Neil Cherry analyzed the cancer rates of children in San Francisco in relation to the distance between their home and the television and FM radio transmitters on Sutro Tower. Children living on hills or ridges were more affected. Those who lived within 1 kilometer of the antenna had a 9 times higher incidence of leukemia, a 15 times higher incidence of lymphoma and a 31 times higher incidence of brain cancer, overall an 18 times higher rate than those living outside the 1 kilometer radius. 14. Suspended animation. A Practical Treatise on Nervous Exhaustion, 1880, by George Miller Beard, The electrotherapist and friend of Thomas Edison contains an intriguing observation. Although these difficulties are not directly fatal and so do not appear in the mortality tables, although on the contrary, they may tend to prolong life and to protect the system against febrile and inflammatory disease, yet the degree of suffering they cause is enormous. Those who suffered the most seemed rather young for their age. Furthermore, Beard noted that one rare disease seemed more likely to afflict the neurasthenic subjects than the rest of the population. That disease was diabetes. Beard had already observed that the increase in life expectancy did not go hand in hand with life quality. The mysterious correlation between the sufferings of neurasthenic people who